Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It's a fun morning to go racing as the Conliff Solutions eSports team takes to the 24 Hours of Daytona. This one's going to be a lot of fun. This is our first time ever broadcasting a team, just a team. So it's going to be interesting to watch. And there is Giancarlo, who is going to be starting the race this morning in the 77 car. He will be in the first split today. Or in the first stint, rather. He'll have the first couple of hours of the race. Good morning, DP. Good morning, Runa. Good morning, DB and Runa. Hope everybody's having a great morning. It is a good morning to go racing at Daytona. It looks nice. It looks like Giancarlo is going to bring the car down to pit road, so we're going to get a word with the driver of the first stint. Giancarlo, it's Doug. You got me?
Hey, Doug.
Hey, the Daytona 24, I know you've done these before. I know you guys have done endurance races before, but this really is the biggest endurance race of the year.
It sure is. It's always a big undertaking. It's always a lot of fun. Doing it with some great guys, some great drivers. So really looking forward to it.
I know you guys, the amount of prep this team has really put in is astounding. You guys have fuel mileage down to, hundreds of feet, just figuring everything out. And the practice you guys have put in is insane. But you have to start this thing off, and that can get tricky at times.
Yeah, the fuel is ever important, given that you can essentially skip entire pit stops if you fuel save the entire race. So that's definitely what we're aiming to do. But the start is just going to be about surviving both turn one, the run down to turn one, the first lap, and that first couple times that the prototypes come through, because there are a lot of them, and it will be very scary.
It is going to be interesting with those prototypes coming in at full speed here this morning. Obviously, something I heard that you guys talking about a lot is being very defensive, especially that first fuel run.
Yeah, I think it's more just being cautious. Given that we're starting farther back, we're going to have to save some extra fuel in the first stint to make our lap target. So I think those two kind of work together, where we lift a bit earlier, save some fuel, stay cautious, ensure that we make it to the end of the race, because that's the most important part, is just keeping the car clean.
Well, good luck this morning. I know you got to go out and qualify here in a few minutes. Wish you the best of luck, and let's hope this thing goes off without any problems in turn one.
Thank you, Doug. Appreciate it.
Now they are at Daytona. They are on the IMSA track. So there have been some changes per iRacing this week. Just making sure that the track limits are set tight so that drivers aren't taking advantage anywhere on the track. Will make for some interesting racing for some of the other drivers, as throughout practice we have seen a lot of drivers getting pushing the limits and going a little bit too far. So we'll be kind of monitoring that and seeing, after a certain amount of off tracks, the drivers will have to go to pit road for a penalty. And of course there is the difference between all the different cars out here this morning, like that Mercedes you're seeing go around right now, which has, of the GT3 cars, the most power, but is not the best handling. Then you've got those high-speed GTP cars out on track this morning. Looking at Mike Holder, he is currently the second fastest GTP car on track, that yellow one right there, the Cadillac. The Conliff guys have to be watching for these guys as they go up into the turns, but these guys in these GTPs also have to be well aware of where the GT3 cars are, because there is such a disparity in the speeds between both cars. Drivers getting in that last 2 minutes of practice here this morning, and then we will get to watch the drivers go out for qualifying. Now, I can tell you the first couple of hours is going to be Giancarlo in the car, followed by Max Gunther. Adam Barker will take the third stint at it. Then it'll be Giancarlo, Adam Barker, Giancarlo, Mike Dolling, Nick Sorensen, Mike Dolling, Nick Sorensen, and then back to Max and Adam to round this thing out tonight. And several of the drivers are going to be on standby all day long in case they need to step up for whatever reason, because there are tendencies, no matter how much prep you do, for technical difficulties. So a lot of great guys on standby, ready to go to support their team here this morning. This is a fun race to do. I've done it a couple of times myself. Kind of sad that I didn't get to do it this year, but circumstances were as such that we just didn't get to. But it is so awesome that, so appreciative that Conliff Racing invited us out to help broadcast this race. And starting this new team off, they already have an awesome sponsor on board, Advanced Sim Racing, the leading provider of high-end turnkey racing sims for both enthusiast and pro drivers. These are the systems, these are the setups, these are the builds provided by Advanced Sim Racing that some of those professional drivers you see, they use in the shops to prepare. I did hear Max Verstappen is out here preparing this morning in the top split, so you know some of these drivers are out here using this morning's event to practice for next week's real world event. Looks like it will be a 50-car field here this morning as they begin to go out for qualifying here in just a moment. Giancarlo is rolling off, headed out for his qualifying run in the Conliff Racing BMW. And of course, we will have the track map up for you throughout the race, so you can see where that number 77 car is at on track. And once we get into the race session, you'll be able to see all the other cars. You can pay attention. The GT3s have the pink coloring next to them. The GTPs have the yellow coloring next to them. So you guys will be able to see where the other cars are on the track and in relation to Giancarlo and the rest of the team as the day goes on. Giancarlo just completing his outlap, headed down into turn one, and that's where we are going to see the most chaos in that first run for Giancarlo. Good morning, Mark Dantuma. Giancarlo is really sending it You can tell he's pushing it through the kink. That thing was just on edge. As he comes back out onto NASCAR 1. .56 miles around this track. And we will be looking at a lot of the car data throughout the morning as you see Giancarlo coming around to complete his first lap. You see some of the GTPs have already completed their first qualifying lap. Those GTPs are 10 plus seconds a lap faster than the GT3s, and that may be one of the biggest challenges that all the drivers will have to deal with over the next 24 hours is not getting together with a faster car. Those faster cars work watching out for the slower cars. Now, if anybody out there has completed or is running the 24 hours right now, let us know how your race is going. Now, a lot of the team drivers are already available, so we're going to be talking to them throughout the race. That way we can get some updates on what is going on track in real time. As you heard Giancarlo say when we talked to him a little bit ago, the big concern this morning will be the fuel, and being safe will be number one, but conserving fuel to save that pit stop here and a pit stop there could make a gigantic difference before the end of this race. Especially once we see how long their pit stops take here. We will get to see Giancarlo do a pit stop here this morning. We will also get to see the first driver change when Max Gunther takes over in a couple of hours. Now, the plan for this broadcast is quite simple. We're going to have the first few hours of the race. We'll talk to the drivers and then close it out, but we will come back this evening with updates, and once we have completed the update, we'll leave the stream live for you guys to watch the team, plus the team will be available to hop in and give updates as they want. Giancarlo currently about 16th fastest of the GT3s at the moment. If you want to learn more about that Conliff Racing team, you can go check them out. Their link is right there, conliff-racing.com. This is a group of drivers that has raced together for a very long time, but putting it all together with this new eSports team and with this new sponsor, they're going to step it up to the next level. So you'll be looking for their name in a lot of upcoming endurance races and a lot of exciting stuff to come from this team. And hey, while you're there, make sure you hit while you're here, make sure you hit that like, follow, subscribe, hit that share button, drop in the comments, and give that Conliff Racing team a quick cheer as Barney the Flagman is waving the checkered on qualifying. Folks, we're about to go racing. Hey, good morning, Aaron. All right, here we go, folks. They begin to stack up and get ready for the start of this one. As we said, Giancarlo starting, it looks like 17th of the GT3 cars. Trying to get a look at Giancarlo. There is the Conliff Racing car from the car behind him's in-car camera. And as we mentioned, that turn one is going to be very, very dicey. In the past, we've actually seen problems here at Daytona just on the pace laps. However, this is one of the higher splits, so these drivers should be safe in the early laps, allowing everybody time to settle in, find a rhythm, and then start laying down those fast laps. Now, it is a team event with 5 drivers in this team, splitting that 24 hours between them. Again, they have put in a ton of practice, a ton of calculations have gone into this. And it all comes down to this. And the GTPs have finally started to roll. Now, the advantage Giancarlo has right now is his whole team is available to help spot. Will allow the team to kind of split up and watch different sectors of the track this morning. At least to get him through the first couple of laps. The first 3 or 4 laps here tend to be the most dangerous. Are expecting them to fire and take off any second. As soon as the pace car hits pit road, the leaders can fire. Here comes that GT3 class through turns 3 and 4. NASCAR 3 and 4, excuse me. And it sounds like they are winding up as the GTPs just got the green flag. We are underway. The 24 Hours of Daytona, driven by that. Holy cow! Giancarlo had a scary moment already. Side by side through turn 1. Giancarlo still out of trouble. No problem. He's got cars spinning just ahead. Everybody clears out of his way. Multiple cars wrecked. Giancarlo's spotters working overtime on lap 1 here, but he just picked up a ton of positions. Several cars already heavy damage. Yes, they have pit road speed limit here, Aaron. After that lap 1 chaos, Giancarlo already up to 14th. He's picked up 3 spots so far. Still quite a bit of lap 1 to go as they come out onto NASCAR 1 and 2 and down the back straightaway toward the bus stop, where I'm sure we're going to see some chaos in the bus stop today. Looks like a couple of the GTPs had some problems in the bus stop and have already gone to pit road, as have a couple more GT3s. Hey, good morning, Devoured Souls. How's it going? Giancarlo did say he would be driving defensively here for lap 1. It is paid off. He comes through NASCAR 3 and 4, already up 3 spots. And now we do know that Giancarlo's strategy at this point is to switch over into fuel-saving mode. Mostly just keeping a consistent pace and being easy on the throttle, staying out of trouble, and the team will save a ton of fuel here this morning. Giancarlo currently stuck behind Pablo Riestra in the BMW, and George Houghton right behind in the Porsche. Nobody really pushing the issue here. Looks like everybody, as we mentioned, this is one of the higher splits. So everybody being a lot more patient and conservative here in the early going. Which I know is hard to believe when you see him coming down the back straightaway at 150, 160 miles an hour, but it's getting a little spicy just ahead of Giancarlo as they head toward turn 1. Looking down from the blimp, and it gets really spicy. A big checkup into turn 1. Giancarlo has to actually back off mid-corner as they were side by side. Gets back on the throttle, though, and may have a run on the car ahead. He does. Looks to the inside. He is in there. Can he get the run off? Can't get the run off. The Porsche ahead, driven by Sacha Davoli, manages to hold on to the position, but you can see Giancarlo has started to step it up just a bit. Over 50 cars started the race, 48 still on track. And 23 GT3 cars still on track. Now Giancarlo looks to the inside as they go down to the bus stop. The Porsche drops back and Giancarlo picks up a position. Now, I'm sure his team is watching closely the lap times of the cars ahead. Giancarlo and the team, one of the big things that they wanted to make sure they were doing is staying in the draft as much as possible. That will help conserve a ton of fuel here. And the team also doing fuel calculations on the fly this morning. Giancarlo starting to pull away from Sacha, closing in on Jonathan Worth just ahead. The Porsches will have a little bit of an advantage through the infield section where they are now, but the BMWs do have a speed advantage over that Porsche on these big straightaways. However, that BMW is one of the biggest cars and does break up the air and allows the cars behind it to stay in the draft fairly well. Giancarlo now back in the draft of that 4-car pack just ahead. Getting right to the back bumper of the Porsche of Jonathan Worth. It looks like Giancarlo may have a run here. The question is he going to take the run, or is he going to stay on the bumper and conserve fuel here? Does not look like Giancarlo is pushing the issue, at least for the moment, as they go back into the infield. And it has been pretty clean since lap 2. We saw that chaos coming through this section on lap 2, but since that moment, everything has been... they're kicking up a little dust there, but everything else has been fine. Giancarlo coming down through the kink, set his fastest lap so far last time, 1:45.21. Worth noting that that is within the range of what the team wanted to keep. The goal was to hang around the 146 mark, so every lap that's faster than that, at 146 just as a consistent pace, they'll pick up the speed when necessary. Likely to see some laps in the 144s, maybe even in the 143 range. However, Giancarlo comes around. Last time by 1:45.21. Last time by the GTP leader ran a 1:32.02. You see on the track map that the GTPs are about to catch the back end of the GT3s here. Giancarlo's got to run as 2 cars go up the track. What are they going to do into 1? Ooh. A few pucker moments here, but Giancarlo, no damage, has managed to avoid trouble so far. And while we want Giancarlo go around, before we get the GTPs up here to make things really interesting, let's talk to the next driver up, Max Gunther. Hey Max, it's Doug. You got me?
Hi, Doug.
I know you're watching this after seeing this first few laps here. How are you feeling about being second in line today?
Well, we actually changed around the driver order. So Giancarlo is going to do 2 stints, and then I'm going to do 1, and then Adam.
I got you. Okay. It's been updated on the fly yet again. Got it.
Yeah.
Well,
we do that sometimes.
I've noticed. Now, knowing that you go after Giancarlo, you've seen how things are going out there so far, and there's been a lot of conservative driving, a lot of patience, but that first few laps, things got really dicey.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of GT3s actually crashed out, which is actually good for us, but the GTPs are all still in the race.
And that
are coming now.
The GTPs finally just caught up, and that is definitely going to make things interesting, especially coming towards turn 1.
Yeah, they normally don't show a lot of patience. Especially.
Ooh.
Oh yeah. I'm seeing it.
Well, I'm gonna let you go talk to the team. I'm sure we'll talk to you again before you get in the car. But man, go make sure Giancarlo has the brown pants on, will you?
Yeah, I'm doing that.
All right, good luck, buddy.
See you, man.
Max Gunther will be the second driver in the car. You've seen the close calls Giancarlo has been able to take advantage of those GTPs, though. So far, it has allowed him to pick up a couple more positions. Giancarlo now 12th in the GT3s. Here on this straightaway, going into the bus stop, this is, holy cow, this is where things will get really, really exciting. The GTPs do like going up by the wall. They can carry more momentum out of the NASCAR turns. But as you see, the cars just so many close calls, so much going on. It is a handful running a multi-class race at any point in time. But when you have the disparity of speed that we're seeing here, things get really spicy in a heartbeat. Giancarlo actually said he really doesn't like being the first driver out, but I'd say he's done fairly well here as he moves up to the high side to set up for turn one. Gives the GTPs enough room to get down to the bottom. And a big checkup for that Porsche just ahead as he goes through turn one. Now Giancarlo back underneath of him. Several cars going off track back behind. Let's see if we can get the blimp view as another GTP is caught up behind the Porsche. Shoots to the inside. There's a GTP spinning ahead. There's a Porsche off in the grass. Giancarlo comes through unscathed and is now into the top 10 of the GT3 field. Wow. There are some really close calls going on out here for Giancarlo, and that is the tendency here in the early going at the 24 Hours of Daytona. We just had several cars tow to pit road. Looks like there's 3 GT3s currently on pit road, one of them on their way back out. All the GTPs currently still on track, at least for the moment. Giancarlo staying low, letting some of these cars just get by. Let's take a lap around in the car with Giancarlo down through 1 and 2. Hey, good morning, Kellen. How's your race going, buddy? Down into the International Horseshoe, and you can see there on the map, he's got a lot of GTPs coming behind and a bunch up ahead. He's actually going to have a few clear laps here shortly. Down through the kink, runs the wiper a little bit, just getting the dust cleaned off. We saw him come through a lot of dust on that last lap. Through the second horseshoe as he heads down to go back out onto the banking for NASCAR 1 and 2. Back up on the banking, we should see that one GTP car. There's a couple of them back behind him. We might get to see one come flying by him here in a moment. We will definitely do some in-car when he's back in that big pack of GTP cars. You guys can get to see what it's like to be in the car. It feels like when those cars come flying by, it'll make your heart skip a beat a little bit. Back through 3 and 4. And there goes one of them. You see just how different the speeds are, especially on the straightaways. But those cars have so much more downforce, so much more grip. They are able to get through the turns just as fast. Giancarlo started back in 17th, and just by avoiding chaos has moved into the top 10 of the GT3 cars so far. Interestingly, only 6 BMWs in the field, and a big surprise here this morning. Only 2 of the new Audis are in the field this morning. Giancarlo currently sits in 10th place and has breathing room for the moment as he comes through the bus stop. Nobody directly ahead or behind. He is about 2.4 seconds back from Scott Rister. And hearing some sliding up ahead. Likely in turn 1, will we see problems for Giancarlo? Several cars just towed to pit road. They are GT3s. Giancarlo now up into 8th. The Conliff Racing team on their first outing as a team is on fire this morning. Having a great start. Giancarlo running the first 2 stints, and the stints are basically calculated on the fuel window, which the drivers were talking about a 47 minute roughly. That will be their fuel window, so we'll see Giancarlo in for the first time. It will be a bit, probably another 25 minutes or so. And each pit stop, they will be going ahead and changing all 4 tires. In the past, the situation has been it takes so long to change tires versus how long it took to fuel the car that they wouldn't change tires, that you would try and run multiple fuel runs on a single set of tires to make up some ground. However, that is no longer the case when you're filling the car to the limit, to the brink. Changing 4 tires is the same amount of time at this point. That is also the case for the driver changes now. The driver changes basically take as long as a 4-tire stop. So every pit stop today will be 4 tires and fuel. Some of them will include a driver change. And it looks like Giancarlo has settled into a bit of a rhythm here. That rhythm is closing in on Scott Rister it was closing in on Scott Rister just a moment ago. He's lost a little bit of ground now. But with the drivers that have gone off track today and the few passes Giancarlo has had to make, he is already up 9 spots from where he started. Also worth noting that Giancarlo's fastest lap is faster than several of the cars in front of him, and his consistent lap times are also faster than several of the drivers ahead of him. And with as long of a race as they have ahead here today, there's no reason to push the car right now. There is the speeds that Giancarlo is currently running. And we'll take a look at how fast he gets as he comes down the back straightaway toward the bus stop. Already up to 150 miles an hour, continuing to gain speed. 160 coming off the banking. Gets it to 169 before getting on the brakes into the bus stop. That'll probably be the fastest speed we will see out of his car, out of that car today, as the lead GTP is coming around. .172 coming down the front straightaway. 173, 174. And here you see they are coming again from behind. It's right along with Giancarlo as the GTPs are coming up on him through the infield. This is where things get really tricky. Giancarlo has to be careful to not cut him off, but the GTP and LMP drivers have a tendency to be a bit aggressive. They know they have the speed and the grip and have been known to bump a GT3 car out of the way. Giancarlo doing a very good job making sure he gives way to the faster cars without losing any momentum himself. Likely to see a few. He is doing 150, 155, 160. And the GTP just goes by so fast. You can see he's using every bit of the bus stop, trying to carry as much momentum as is possible. Whenever possible, you'll also see Giancarlo dropping in behind a GTP, picking up a little bit of draft. Could give him an extra mile an hour. Could make a huge difference in the middle of a battle. Oh! Giancarlo just went by Mike Burge, who had a problem, went off track through one. Close call for Giancarlo as he came out of turn one, and Mike's Ferrari was coming up out on track. That moves Giancarlo now up 10 spots into 7th. That Conliff Racing car is on fire this morning. That checkup, though, and the GTP cars have caused George Houghton to close up just a bit. However, a slew of GTP cars is coming again and may be to the benefit of Giancarlo here. You see the mess going on right behind Giancarlo. He actually gets some clearer track through the bus stop And there is a big wreck back behind into the bus stop. Take a look at this wreck so you guys can see just what these drivers have to deal with. That GTP just gets on the brakes, goes around. They are extremely sensitive under braking. Giancarlo, though, already up 10 spots. George right on his bumper. There has been a multi-car incident on track. Obviously, in an endurance race, there are no cautions here. Let's see if we can see what happened, as this does appear to be a bunch of GT3 cars. Headed down into turn one. That is Mike Birch, who we saw had problems through one a minute ago. Oh, he slammed into the tire wall, and several GT3s behind get caught up. Wow. Fortunately, the worst of the wrecks so far have all happened behind Giancarlo. He has had to drive through a few of them, and that managing to check up has allowed the car behind to gain a little bit of a gap on him. That Porsche right behind him that he had passed earlier on in the race has been able to catch back up. Right on the bumper through turn one with a GTP right behind. It does appear all the GTP cars are still out on track. A few of them have spent some extended time on pit road. The reason we talk about that as much as we do, because the disparity in speed, that is where you tend to see the most chaos in these type of races, is when those faster cars catch up to the GT3s. And now that the field is starting to spread out, there is going to be a lot more interaction between both types of cars. Those GTP cars going by almost sound like a fighter jet flying by, and it's definitely what it feels like when you're in the slower car. Giancarlo has lost ground to the car ahead of Scott Rister, but he has started to open the gap back up on George Houghton behind him. Of note, the car leading the GT3s right now is the Porsche driven by Danny Neo. The last few laps, Giancarlo has been faster. Looks like Danny may be in fuel conservation mode, got himself away from the pack just a little bit. and is now trying to save the car, stretch his fuel window here. Whereas the Conliff team, their strategy coming into today was seeing and making sure they could stretch the fuel as much as was needed to limit their times on pit road. So while we will see at some points today other cars hitting pit road long before this Conliff car does. Does look like a few more GT3s after that incident did go to pit road. They're on pit road for repairs right now, but have not dropped out of the race quite yet. Does look like there are quite a few already out of the race. However, there is one or two more opportunities for them to get their team back in and try another 24 hours later this evening and tomorrow morning. And if you have a team or are working with a team that is out there racing this morning, let us know which team you're on and where you guys are at. Does look like we are starting to see a few drivers and a few teams drop out early. And it does look like some of the cars ahead are actually starting to push late in this run, as Scott Ristard and the 3 car ahead both have just set their fastest laps of the morning in the 144.8 and 144.9 range. We'll start seeing some cars hit pit road within the next 10 minutes. Potentially sooner, depending on how their strategy is. And it will be interesting to see how closely the GT3 and GTPs pit, because I do know in practice there were some issues between those cars on pit road, as well as the lead GTP just came back past Giancarlo. As you can see, the yellow cars on the map are the GTPs, the pink are the GT3s. You can see they have spread out quite a bit. The second place GT3 car just set its fastest lap to 145.18. That is on pace where Giancarlo was much earlier in the run. And Giancarlo still running faster lap times than some of the cars ahead of him. Whoa! A very close call with a GTP coming around. Let's see if we can talk to one of the upcoming drivers. Hey, good morning, Beef Squatch. Let's see if we can talk to Mike Dalling and see how the team is doing. Mike, it's Doug. You got me?
Hey, Doug. How you doing?
I am good, man. It's been an exciting start to the race.
It has. It's been eventful. However, Giancarlo's keeping us clean. Everything's on track. We are on track with our fuel strategy. Everything's going to plan. So, but it got a little hairy, and it's getting hairy again.
It definitely is. It seems whenever I grab one of you, everything goes to crap as soon as I do.
Yeah, but it's typical. The LMDH cars coming through the pack are often disrupt the GT3 traffic. This may play in our favour a little bit. We're hoping to close the gap on P6 as the traffic comes through. We'll see. The LMDH field have spread out a bit now, so that's going to make it a little bit more interesting or less interesting, hopefully, because we're not seeing 10 cars come through as a pack. We're seeing like 4 or 5 come through, which again makes it a little cleaner. Fingers crossed. Anyway, I hope I haven't jinxed us by saying that.
Well, I have noticed Giancarlo's laps, while very consistent, and faster than some of the cars ahead, are definitely not the fastest out there. But you guys talked about your fuel strategy being the biggest thing.
Yeah.
And it is likely that we're going to see everybody else hitting pit road before you guys do. In fact, looks like, a couple of GT3s just came back off pit road, but
that's mainly because of damage.
Yeah.
I'm looking at lap times. I'm going to suggest that P1 isn't fuel saving at the moment. They're just trying to get ahead. And then, for example, P3 looks like there's fuel saving. P4 does. I think the majority of the field are fuel saving, with the exception of P1 at the moment. But then he's a 6,000 I rating driver, so maybe he's fuel saving and he's still doing lap times that are nearly a second quicker than everyone else. But at the moment, lap times not irrelevant. But our fuel strategy is the most relevant. Looking at our fuel strategy, we believe that we can save 2 stints, which will be nearly the equivalent of 2 laps made up in lap times, as in track time. So if we lose a position because someone else isn't fuel saving, it'll be irrelevant later on in the race. So we're not worried. We're just going to stick with our strategy and play it out.
it seems to be working so far. I mean, you guys have kept consistent. You're already up 10 spots from where you started, and while the guy in P6 is pulling away a little bit, the rest of the field kind of seems like over the last few laps has really started coming back toward you.
Yeah, the P6 was in the draft, which was affecting us. He's now out of the draft, so we might see. I think we're going to see us closing the gap on P6. Giancarlo last lap was 0.7 quicker, so if we can keep doing that within the next 10 laps, we'll be on their bumper.
How many laps do you think before? I know you guys have this down to the minute. How many laps before we see Giancarlo make his first stop?
9.
9 more laps. We'll be counting down. I'm sure we'll be talking to you again, but good luck to you guys. It's been a great race
Doug.
so far.
All right, thank you. Cheers.
Cheers. Well, there you have it. Giancarlo about 9 laps away from pitting at 1:45 a lap. And they do expect to start closing the gap on P6. That is that pink and green Porsche. purple and green Porsche. And as you heard him say, the leader right now, Danny Neo, does not appear to be fuel saving at all. But despite everything that has happened thus far, Giancarlo has kept the car clean, and for the moment at least, strategy stays the same because they are gonna save so much time by skipping a few pit stops here. How are you this morning, Andrew? Giancarlo has been faster than all the cars in front of him at some point during this first stint as he comes through the bus stop. Keeping a very close eye on the 6 cars ahead of Giancarlo to see when they start coming to pit road. And we did just get about 3 GTPs onto pit road. So we are starting to see pit stops. For those cars, so I think we'll see GT3 pit stops in the next 5 laps. As we heard, Giancarlo about 9 laps away. Conliff BMW has definitely had a great morning this morning. And check out their partner, Advanced Sim Racing, for all your sim rig needs. They have some awesome stuff. I was looking through all their stuff last night, and all the GTPs, several GTPs just hit pit road. The top 10 are all in. As I was saying, the Advanced Sim Racing on Facebook, man, they're on Facebook and Twitter. Go check them out. They have a lot of great stuff, a great group to partner with, and you can get a full turnkey iRacing setup. You could be in the next iRacing event a month from now. The last of the GTPs is on pit road, so they will have completed pit stops that will likely spread that field out just a little bit. And then the question is going to become, how many more laps does Giancarlo get than the cars ahead of him? If they even get 1 extra lap per stop, that will save them a lot of time. But as you heard Mike say a few moments ago, they are expecting to outdrive some of these teams by a couple of stops today. And the last 2 GTPs are on their way out of pit road now. All 25 GTPs are still out on track. However, only 17 GT3s still on their lead lap at the moment, and already several of them out of the race. Giancarlo has pulled away from the Porsche behind him in 8th. Is still trying to reel in the Porsche ahead in 6th. Has not gained a lot of ground, but at the moment they were expecting to gain a lot of ground on that Porsche of Scott Rister. All the GTPs they were looking for help from hit pit road. And now as they all come back by, we could see that start to play out here. Watching as the leader coming through that final turn does not come in this time. Giancarlo coming out of the bus stop through NASCAR 3 and 4. Trying to pick up what little draft he can off those GTP cars, but even a little bit of draft off a GTP is going to help his speed, his momentum, and his fuel. The leader is coming back out. The leader is also into lap traffic now. That could have a dramatic effect on this race as the leader gets into lap GT3 traffic, and as the GTP is going by, that could have a dramatic impact . The leader unable to get by that lap car ahead. And he is trying to signal to the car ahead as the GTP car tries to fight his way by. Now the leader gets by, but that held him up dramatically. And that has allowed every car behind to gain some time. But Giancarlo about to have his hands full. Here comes 3 GTPs battling. One almost got into him. Some very close calls for Giancarlo this morning, but he has managed to keep it out of trouble. And you heard the rest of the team as we've talked to them. They are so far very, very happy with the way things are going for their car. The 8th and 9th place cars just set their fastest laps of the morning and are gaining a little bit of ground on Giancarlo. As the fuel load burns off, these drivers do get faster laps out of the car. It does take a lot of patience and a lot of discipline to maintain your lap times, not push the car any harder. Looks like there were a couple of incidents, including one of the GT3s ahead of Giancarlo. Went off track a moment ago. Let's see what happened. Oh! A bit of chaos there out of the second horseshoe. Likely to see a couple of these cars on pit road again here in just a moment. It's a close call coming out of the bus stop for Giancarlo. And the lead GT3 is on pit road. He has overshot his stall. And the other car ahead of Giancarlo that was involved in that incident a moment ago, he is in. Giancarlo still has a couple of laps left to go on track before he hits his first stall, and we're already seeing drivers missing their pit stalls. If Giancarlo can take it easy here this morning, he could make up a ton of time just by hitting his pit stall correctly. First GT3 stops of the day are underway. All the GTPs have completed their first stop. Giancarlo now up into fifth as pit stops are underway. Those two cars we saw on pit road now on their way back out. And the leader, Danny Neo, is back out, currently scored back in 13th. And the rest of the GT3 field cars ahead of Giancarlo just hit pit road. Giancarlo appears to be staying out. This is that moment we have been talking about. Giancarlo is in the GT3 lead. For the first time this morning, that Conliff Racing car takes the lead in the GT3 class. Now as he closes in on his pit window with that lightened fuel load and being out front, he has some breathing room around him. He can push the car just a little bit harder. This, when he comes in, it will be 4 tires and fuel. Will monitor the stop times. Most of these drivers between 40 and 43 seconds so far this morning, but a lot of time being lost on pit road. Giancarlo potentially could make up a lot of ground here this morning. And here he comes, Giancarlo headed in for his first stop. It will be 4 tires and fuel as he comes in to his pit stall. There will not be a driver change on this stop. The car is up. He is still scoring the lead, but Danny Neo is closing back in. Remember, Danny did overshoot his pit stall. Giancarlo did not. And Giancarlo is down. The third place car is back on pit road. Danny Neo has reclaimed the lead. Giancarlo now on his way out, and it's looking like he's going to come back out in 7th place. Giancarlo stop a 41.72. He was on pit road for 1 minute 18.65 seconds. Definitely making up some ground on all the cars ahead with that pit road time. But now now Giancarlo's about to be back into a mess as he goes out into NASCAR 1 and 2. Because here comes a line of GTPs. This could make the bus stop this time by very exciting as well. Good move into the bus stop by Giancarlo. He shoots back out. The leader, meanwhile, up ahead, but now just less than 23 seconds ahead of Giancarlo, as Giancarlo continues to make up ground on him. That BMW has just been dialed in perfectly all morning long. The next car behind, the 8th place car, Ian Bransfield, about 1.5 seconds back, is gaining a little bit of ground in traffic, but there is a lap car of a Ferrari between them. And the 6th place car ahead, Scott Rister, the one they've been trying to reel in for a while, they are starting to gain a little bit of ground on. Coming back across the start-finish line, we'll see how Giancarlo's lap times stack up after the pit stop. 146.23 as he tries to put some heat in those tires. The car behind, driven by Ian Bransfield, closed in a big way last lap with 145.08. Danny Neo out front despite problems on pit road is starting to pull away again. But again, Giancarlo was the last GT3 car on pit road. He continues to stretch the fuel like that, and they will be able to avoid 1 to 2 pit stops here today. The rest of the field will have to make a couple extra stops. That very well could be enough if he can maintain the lead lap until that point. Could very well be enough to secure the win for the Conliff Racing team. Ian Bransfield had gained a lot of time on Giancarlo, but is now starting to lose it. Giancarlo's starting to pull away again. That lap Ferrari between him and an upcoming GTP car will have an impact on that. Holy cow, that GTP could not have gotten any closer. Scott Rister still about 8 1/4 seconds ahead of Giancarlo. That Ferrari that was between Giancarlo and Ian has now gotten back past it and is trying to reel Giancarlo back in. Another one of the GT3s has had a major incident. Oh, just a bump off the GTP coming onto NASCAR 1 and 2. That's what we have been talking about all morning long. That is where Giancarlo has to be the most careful here, is giving way to the GTPs, but not losing any time on track when he does. Through the second horseshoe, Giancarlo now has a couple more GTPs closing back in. And anybody that's on iRacing who has not done a 24 Hours of Daytona, I highly recommend trying it out at least once just for the experience. And if you're in the faster car, please don't run people over. It's just frustrating. Well, let's see if we can talk to another one of the drivers we haven't talked to yet today, Adam Barker, who will be taking a stint after Max Gunther. So let's see if we can get a word with Adam. Adam, it's Doug. You got me?
Hey, Doug, how are we doing?
I'm good, man. The team's doing really well. Giancarlo, despite a few close calls, has moved forward. You guys are on strategy. It's looking like a good day.
Yeah, we're doing really well. This is what we're looking for. We're just driving to a fuel delta for now, so Giancarlo's keeping the pace up. We're struggling a little bit. It'd be a lot easier if we had a bit of draft, but we're a little bit in limbo where we're a bit quicker than the guys behind, and the guys ahead are just keeping static pace. So it'll be interesting to see if Giancarlo can get another extra 2 laps for this one. He should be able to do it. He's just driving around to a delta at this point. So
well, we did get to see him stretching that fuel further than everybody else, and I know that's the strategy for all of you guys this morning, which should give you a few less pit stops over the 24 hours. Yeah,
we're hopefully, if all goes to plan, we should do 2 less pit stops than everybody else. If they're on 31 laps, so if they're doing 32, then we'll get an extra pit stop over them. So it's more time on track and less time in the pits is the idea.
Well, so far it is definitely working out, and I know we've seen quite a few close calls out there. Once you go into the night session, which I think you're going to be butting up against when the sun starts to go down, things really start to get interesting when you're having to drive under the lights.
Yeah, things start heating up a little bit again. People start making mistakes. You get a few hours into the race and people start relaxing. Everyone's still got their guards up right now, so they're still driving defensively, making sure they're out of the way. When it gets darker, people start missing their braking points. The lights maybe get in their eyes or something, and people start making mistakes. But hopefully the craziness is behind us now. We've got a lot of the field still running. We were really surprised to see that all of the LMs were still running after the first 5 laps, even with some slight mistakes from people. So it'll be interesting to see what it's like 6 hours into the race, and then 12 hours when we're getting really into it, and then the last 4 hours, that's when we'll start putting the hammer down.
Well, so far the strategy is working. I know we're looking forward to seeing you out there as well. Good luck, buddy.
Thank you very much.
Adam Barker, he will be the 3rd driver to get in the car this morning after at the next pit stop, Giancarlo will switch. Max Gunther will hop in the car. And they will continue just on this strategy that they're running. Seems to be working out pretty well right now. Running consistent 145 to low 146s. Conserving that fuel, going that extra lap or 2 will save them over the course of the 24 hours 1 to 2 pit stops. 1 pit stop. Last time by, Giancarlo ran a 145.99. And his pit stop was a 118.65, so 1 stop is going to give him 2/3, maybe 3/4 of a lap over the cars that have to stop that extra time. If we see him stretch it 2, or have 2 less pit stops, then they are really going to end up over a lap ahead of the rest of the field by the time the race comes to a close. The Conliff Racing team's debut race could be a victory. The strategy is definitely there, but still a long way to go. 22 hours, 48 minutes to go for this team. And as we mentioned several times, if you're on a team that is out there running, drop in the comments. Let us know how your race is going this morning. And don't forget to hit the like, follow, subscribe. Most importantly, hit that share button. Invite your friends and family. Sometime after Max gets in the car for the third stint, we will stop the broadcast for a little bit, but we will be back later this evening. We'll provide updates on Facebook throughout the day. We'll check in with them and provide some updates throughout the day. And then later tonight, we will be back. We'll broadcast for a little bit, and then we'll leave the stream up in such a way that the drivers can come in and give updates overnight. The nice thing about the Conliff Racing team, it is a multinational team, so they have drivers both here in the US, Canada, in the UK, and in Europe, continental Europe. So they are able to really make the times work for all the drivers. And that allows the drivers to stay a little bit more fresh, be driving a little bit more during the normal time that they would be away. Fifth and sixth place now are together. The fifth place car has had problems already today, has been around, does look like it is minimal damage to that Porsche. But sixth place, Scott Rister has been on the attack all morning long. Giancarlo still trying to reel him in, and as these two start battling, if they do any battling for position here, that could allow Giancarlo to gain a lot of ground. And of course, we have already seen the leader, Danny Neo, have a problem this morning. He overshot his pit stall on that first stop. Giancarlo did have a perfect pit stop for his first stop. We'll see how it goes the rest of the morning, but so far, so good for the Conliff Racing team. And I am sure there's going to be some highlights and information on their website. You can check it out, conliff-racing.com. Go check them out, and I am sure after today they are going to have some great information out there. Their upcoming schedule and a lot more will be on in the near future. You can keep up with all the activities of the Conliff Racing eSports team. Plus, while you're there, they do have a link to their sponsor, Advanced Sim Racing. Definitely want to check out Advanced Sim Racing. They have some amazing stuff. They are the leading provider of high-end turnkey racing sims for both enthusiasts and pros alike. If you want a full-on high-end sim racing rig and you just want somebody to put everything together for you, those are the folks to call. All the best equipment, all the best rigs, everything you could want. Go check out their Facebook page. They have several pictures of rigs they have built for folks. Since Scott Rister has caught the fifth place car, he has started losing time. He has not made a move past him. That is allowing Giancarlo has gained over half a second. So far, Giancarlo continuing to gain ground on 5th and 6th place. We also know, based on what we saw in the first half of the first hour of this race, that the top 5, some of them are saving fuel, but a lot of them are not. Does not appear that the leader has been saving fuel. And it looks like the 3rd place car in the GT3 series. Well, no, it looks like one of the GTP cars just disconnected from the server. May have lost connection. It looked like it was one of the GT3s, but it appears it was not. It was one of the GTPs. Looked like Giancarlo may have gotten that rumble strip a little too much. That car got a little off kilter there. He manages to hold on to it. No surprise. Scott Rister is losing the draft off the 5th place car. He beats him through the bus stop, but Giancarlo is continuing to gain ground. Now, all the drivers on track here today have to be extra careful. iRacing did tighten up the track limits for this race. So the drivers are having to be very careful about it. Interestingly, Giancarlo has only had 2 off tracks, and that is the lowest number of any car still running. Just showing how consistent Giancarlo is here today. Giancarlo still holding 9.5 seconds behind Rister. And we have seen a lot of little mistakes from the drivers ahead, like what we saw with the leader, Danny Neo, on his first stop, overshooting his pit stall. You heard Adam Barker mention it a few moments ago, the fact that after a little bit of time, as drivers settle in, they have a real tendency to relax a little too much, start missing braking points, start making mistakes, and that's when trouble crops up. We are likely to see a lot of that when the sun goes down and the lights come up here at Daytona. Giancarlo has been doing a great job of not losing any momentum as the GTP cars come around him this morning. We have seen a lot of cars cause those GTPs to hold up in a few incidents where contact was made. Giancarlo so far, no contact, no problems, and no major loss of momentum. Hey, good morning, Nicole. How was your 24 hours? I saw you guys had lost some ground, made up some ground, and then lost some. How is it going so far? Giancarlo almost had a moment there coming through those first couple of turns with the LMPs on your bumper. Can get a bit sketchy. Great job, Nicole. Still on your way, or back on your way toward the front. I saw where you guys had lost some ground early on, fought your way back up, then dropped back to 30th. Good to see you guys are headed the right way again. Giancarlo was gaining ground on Rister, but Rister in 6th place has pulled back out to about a 10-second gap. And that has had an effect on Giancarlo. He has nobody to draft off of right now, which was a big part of the strategy, was trying to keep that car in the draft to help conserve a little bit more fuel. George Houghton showed a problem. Oh! Yeah, he almost got into that GTP car. Looked like he may have had a problem coming off NASCAR 4 last time. He had caught up to Giancarlo earlier in the race, but has started fading back. Ian Brassfeld has caught up to Giancarlo once before prior to pit stops. After pit stops, he lost a lot of ground, now sits 3 1/4 seconds back. Hey, good morning, Cody. Cody, are you in a race? Do you have a team going for the 24 hours right now? Giancarlo headed back towards turn 1. In that mix with the GTP cars coming by. This has been the most dangerous part of the track this morning, which is pretty consistent with this track. But especially with the GTPs trying to dive in there, getting around the GT3s in that section, things have a tendency to get spicy quickly. I'm sorry to hear that, Cody. Oh, Giancarlo coming out on the NASCAR 1 and 2, got a big run right to the back bumper of that GTP, but once that car puts the power down, those GTPs are gone. Most of the drivers have settled into a rhythm for the time being. Starting to get close, we'll start to see a lot of the GTPs on pit road. Looks like there may be a few on now. Yes, in fact, they pretty much from 12th on back is on pit road. Not far off from seeing the GT3s, and the first driver change of the morning, at least for the Conliff team, as Max Gunther prepares to get in the car. Hey, that is a good run, Cody. Are you guys going to try and make another attempt at it? Next time by, we will be about 10 laps from seeing the drivers hit pit road. Some of them even sooner. Most of them pitted on their 30th or 31st lap. Of course, Giancarlo went a lap further than everybody. Good luck, Cody. I hope it goes better, bud. Lap 50 underway for the GT3 so far. A good morning for the Conliff Racing team. Their first race as an official eSports team has started off really well. Giancarlo has been able to avoid a lot of chaos. Like a few drivers have gone off track in the last few moments as GTPs are on pit road. It looks like the vast majority have pitted or are on pit road at the moment, and it does look like we are seeing a lot of driver changes on the second stop. Driver changes will have a dramatic effect on the racing. Obviously, the Conliff Racing team, this group of drivers all have a similar attitude toward the race, and all have on the same page as far as strategy. But some of these drivers just want to hop in the car and full send it from the drop. Versus some members of their team likely being a little more conservative. Those more aggressive drivers likely to cause problems. Plus, they have not had the opportunity to be out on track with the rest of these cars this morning. Hopefully, they've been paying attention, watching their teammates drive around like Max Gunther has been. Cody, they're currently running, Giancarlo currently running 7th up from started in 17th up to 7th, and they can go a lap further on fuel. Their strategy being this morning to continue to go an extra lap or two every single stop. And they do believe they can do this on 2 less stops than everybody else. So far, their strategy has been bang on, and they continue to be extremely fast. Plus, Giancarlo has done an amazing job avoiding some chaos that has happened literally right in front of him or beside him. Giancarlo now 10 laps shy of his pit stop. No, scratch that. 12 laps shy of his pit stop. Everybody else within about 10 laps of their stop. So we'll start to see this strategy really play out here. There you see all the different pit strategies currently playing out. Well, that is actually the only piece. I'm not sure why it did not show us the correct one. $50 cars started the race, 25 GTPs, 25 GT3s. Quite a few GT3s had problems early, and a few of them already out of the race. Now we know that top 2 or 3 cars definitely not saving fuel here. We know the leader definitely was not saving fuel. Second, third, and fourth saved a little bit. 5th place also hit pit road on lap 30 with the leader. Whereas Giancarlo pitted on lap 32. That sounds about right, Cody. As I recall, it's usually 45 to 50. 45 minimum, 50 max. Checking to see, there was a problem on track a moment ago, but it appears to have been one of the GTP cars. Did not have any impact on Giancarlo. Giancarlo, very close call that time. We have seen these GTPs really pushing it when they get behind a GT3 in the bus stop. Some of the drivers just going to the absolute limits. And it looks like one of the GTPs off just in front of Giancarlo. He does get it recovered. Looks like his teammate is right there with him. That could be a problem for Giancarlo here in a moment. Giancarlo's just going to move over and let him by. Ian Brassfield also has closed back up on Giancarlo. We'll see our first driver change of the morning here shortly. So let's see if we can get a word with Max before he gets in the car. Hey, Max, it's Doug again. You got me? Hey, Max, it's Doug. You got me? Sounds like Max has stepped away to get prepared, get his fire suit on, and get ready to hop into the car. We'll try one more time before he takes over the car. We should see the GT3 leader, Danny Neo, in the next 4 laps. And remember, on his first pit stop, he did overshoot his stall, lost a bit of ground. He has been able to pull away, but he is definitely not conserving fuel here this morning. That has pulled him out to 11 1/4 second lead over second place. Third place, another 5.7 seconds back. Fourth place, 6.5 seconds behind, and fifth place just behind fourth place. Fourth, fifth, and sixth practically nose to tail, all within 1.5 seconds. And Giancarlo about 11 seconds back from that battle, but remember, he is going at least 1 to 2 laps more than everybody else. And as the 24 hours goes on, as the team has calculated, they should be able to skip at minimum 1 stop, potentially 2 stops here this morning. Could potentially see, whoa, that was a close call for the GT3 leader. Yes, he came out of NASCAR too with that GTP car. We could potentially see him short pit as looking at the leader's lap times. He has been pushing it to the limit. His last few laps were only 0.02 of a second off of his fastest lap of the day. Obviously, with the lighter fuel load, they are able to go faster, but he is still pushing it to the limit, not conserving a drop. The 5th place car also not conserving a single drop of fuel here this morning. And he has had problems both on pit road as well as problems on track going around coming through the second horseshoe this morning. He had some contact with the GTP car earlier on coming through that second horseshoe, went around through the grass, managed to recover. Holy cow! Some very close calls there. While we have seen a lot of trouble in turn 1 today, this second horseshoe has almost been the cause of all the trouble. In fact, we saw that 5th place car go off right there as Giancarlo goes past due to contact with a GTP car. And we mentioned it earlier on in the race, but there will be a point this morning where the GT3s and GTPs end up hitting together. And we saw some of that in practice, just the speed difference coming into and out of pit road could be catastrophic for both groups. A lot of places on the track where both groups have to be extremely careful and extremely respectful. Since we're about to see pit stops, let's see if we can get all to Max one more time. Max, it's Doug. You got me?
Hi, Doug.
Hey, I know you're getting in the car here in just a few minutes. Are you ready to go?
Yeah, I'm ready to go. It's going to be interesting with the fuel saving, but I think I can manage.
It is
Let's see.
a bit of discipline to keep your foot out of it to a degree.
Yeah, it is. The lifting is quite unusual to shorter sprint races.
It definitely is, but it's going to be a great run, and Giancarlo has really put you guys in a great position.
Yeah. He put us on 7th, and I think we're now just 38 seconds behind the leader. So, if we can keep this up, it's going to be a real great race.
It definitely is, man. I know you got to get ready. He'll be in here in just a couple of laps. Good luck, Max. Looking forward to seeing you out on track.
Thanks, Doug. Thank you.
Max Gunther getting ready to go in. The 5th place GT3 car is in. The leader did not come in this time by. Looks like he will be able to stretch it. A lot of the GT3s behind also hitting pit road here. Only one other GT3 car has been able to pull off the 32 lap stint. He is back in 17th right now. Expect to see that car, the 57, make up some ground late in this race. As he comes out of the bus stop, we should see the leader on pit road this time. And there he comes, Danny Neo, the leader, is on pit road. Now will he hit his pit box this time? He makes sure he does this time, gets a perfect stop. Giancarlo will be able to go at least one, maybe two more laps here. Maybe even more than that. He went 32 in his lap, completing lap 61. So Giancarlo should be able to go about 3 more laps as the cars ahead continue to hit pit road. Also starting to see some of the driver changes taking place. Should see the rest of the top 5 in next time by. I do believe this will be where Giancarlo stretches those extra laps. And the new leader is now on pit road. Pablo stays out. The 3rd place car is in. Scott Rister, who Giancarlo's been trying to reel in, is back on pit road. Another one of the GT3s has had a problem back behind. Coming down into the bus stop, the GTP has to go through the... Ooh! Wow, several close calls. And likely a bit of frustration. And another GTP into the Ferrari. Oh, my apologies. That is an Audi, and he got some damage. Ended up towing. Meanwhile, Giancarlo has now gone to second place. Only one car left ahead of him to come to pit road. Pablo Riestra has the lead for the moment. Should be in this time. And here he comes to pit road. So now Giancarlo's going to stretch it a couple of extra couple extra laps. Yeah, Cody, that has been a fairly common occurrence for a lot of them this morning. We've seen a lot of respectful driving out of the top GTP cars, but some of the mid and back pack ones have just been getting aggressive. Giancarlo comes by as several GT3s come off pit road now. That will give him the lap of drafting here. Will they give him enough to extend maybe an extra lap over what he anticipated? Giancarlo has not had the draft since before the first pit stop. And one of the GT3s that Giancarlo has been battling with all morning, George Houghton, has just crashed. Do not expect... No, Giancarlo is in this time. This will be 4 tires, fuel, and a driver change. The car is up, 4 tires, fuel going in. And Max Gunther now in the car. The first driver change of the morning. Meanwhile, the 29 car just reclaimed the lead. And it does look like most of the GT3 field did change drivers during this stop. Pit stop complete. The car is rolling. New driver, new tires, and a full tank. Max is going to maintain 7th place as he comes out. Cody, that is definitely true, buddy. So Giancarlo out of the car. Let's see if we can talk to him. Giancarlo, that was one heck of a run.
Oh, thanks, Doug. That was a stressful first stint for sure. There was a lot of GTPs, a lot of GT3 death into turn 2 or the horseshoe. Yeah, kept it clean.
You actually, I think it was lap 5 or 6, came through the International Horseshoe with cars spinning off to your left as you were coming through there, and body panels flying all around, but you managed to keep the car clean for your entire run.
Yeah, I was there. There was definitely a number of brown pants moments, but that was the goal of just keep the car clean, and I'm glad that we were able to do that.
And you managed to stretch the fuel further than anybody else. There is one other car in the field on the same strategy, but he is all the way back in 17th place. So you guys managed to have that strategy and maintain some speed.
Yeah, we're hoping that it'll pay off in the end. The difficulty here is we really won't know exactly until the last couple stints of the race whether this was the right strategy or not. I don't know whether to be comforted that we're basically the only one in the top 10 doing this strategy, or to be scared that we're on the wrong one. But at this point, we're committed, so we'll see how it goes.
Well, based on lap times and speed so far, I'd say you guys are in pretty good shape. It's just going to be a matter of keeping that car clean and staying out of trouble.
Yeah, definitely. It is a long race, and we're only 2 hours into 24, so we got a lot of time ahead of us.
You definitely do, but a great start to the race. I know you said you're not a fan of starting these races, but are you now?
It woke me up, that's for sure. No, it's not too terrible. I mean, you just got to really be cautious and take your time, and thankfully I had multiple people watching over me as spotters, which was incredibly helpful to navigate all the carnage at the start.
It definitely does help. I know the last couple times I've done this, having 2 or 3 people at a time, they can watch different sectors of the track, and that really makes a huge difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the start, even just having someone on the overall leaders of the prototypes and on the GT3s and on you is it's huge. It's a great asset to have, and really helps with the start.
And there has been, in the last little bit, more GTPs getting into trouble, and some of them actually starting to show, I don't know, I'm not going to say fatigue, but they're not nearly as fast. Were you able to pull a draft off some of those that came by a little more slowly?
I think maybe, you'll gain 100th or 2. You're really not. They're so fast. Even the slow GTPs are so much faster than the GT3s that they're kind of just off in the wind once they come by. But it was definitely interesting navigating them as they came by. Some pretty close calls in those first 2 stints.
There definitely was, and worth noting, you have the lowest off-track count of any GT3 car.
Oh, I didn't even know you could check that, to be completely honest, with the other cars, but that's great.
Actually, I can tell you, you have 5. There is one GTP that has 4. There's one that has 5. The rest of them are in double digits. And there's only 2 other GT3s in single digits.
Well,
They're
that's
still running. So
ooh, that's fantastic. I mean, that's great news for potentially later in the race when drive-throughs come knocking. So hopefully we'll stay away from that and people will take them.
Well, man, a great run. Go get some coffee, a little rest, and we'll see you on the next one.
Yeah, thanks, Doug. Appreciate it.
Giancarlo just completed that first 2 hours, and what a first 2 hours it was. A little bit of a close call there for Max Gunther as he goes through. Interesting note, Max's lap time's a hair slower. He did say he was going to be struggling to keep his foot out of it. He's doing a great job of conserving right now. The car ahead, the new driver in the 3 car, not as fast as the previous driver was. Max is actually gaining a little bit of ground. All the drivers ahead of Max are new drivers in this car. The leader has managed to open up a bit of a gap, but again, they are not conserving anything. They are often one of the first cars on pit road here this morning. Fifth and sixth place still within a second of each other as Max closes in on him. Max hoping to get that car back into the draft with the 2 cars ahead. He has pulled ahead of the car behind just a little bit. But as we've seen all morning long, with the GTPs in the mix and with the occasional bit of chaos, things can change dramatically at any moment. A lot of new drivers in the GTPs in this third stint as well. They changed over several laps ago. Now all these new drivers on track having to be a little bit extra cautious, a little bit extra respectful out here. Just giving that extra inch could make a huge difference out on track. And it looks like there was a problem a moment ago in the second horseshoe. A lot of cars caught up in it. Here's the first incident into the international horseshoe. See the GTP, just a little too much gas goes around. Then headed down toward the kink, 2 GTPs behind that GT3, and oh, a lot of banging through there. And it looks like Josh Fisher, who was in the GT3 car involved in that, ended up hard into the wall, and he has gone to pit road. Josh was back around 15th, so not a huge impact to the Conliff team, but that does give them a little more breathing room from behind. Max Gunther continuing to reel in the 3 car ahead, this time driven by Andy Yeager. Fifth and sixth place, just about 1.4 seconds apart still at the moment. But Max is closing the gap, and based on these lap times, Max is still conserving his fuel dramatically. It is potentially possible that it looks like the car that was directly behind Max Gunther on track has had a problem. There is Acosta, who is not far behind Max Gunther. That car, holy crap! Ouch town. Well, Max now has a big gap behind him and a lot of breathing room as George Houghton moves into 8th place. This is his 3rd stint. George now almost 12 seconds back from the Conliff Racing car. Well, Cody, I can answer that question with 2 words, because full send. I get what you're saying, and I agree wholeheartedly, but full send. We are starting to see some drivers having some issues, even with the new drivers in the car. You would think the concentration levels would be a little bit higher right now, but a lot of these drivers have been out there spotting for their teams, and Nicholas Acosta has given up 10th and come to pit road. Max still lurking about 6.8 seconds behind Andy. Andy still in striking distance of Braun ahead, but both of these drivers about to get swarmed by GTPs. This could have a dramatic effect as they go down into the bus stop, and no, both of the Porsches check up just a little bit, let the GTPs through. Max gained a little bit of time on that one. Max now has some breathing room here for a bit. Max continues to close in little by little on Andy. Andy is in a bit of a mess with lap traffic. And that is helping Max and the team. Plus, Max's lap times continue. Looks like GTP pit stops are beginning. As I was saying, looks like Max is maintaining the fuel strategy here. That was the biggest concern for the team, or for Max. He is used to full sending it and said it was difficult learning to lift. But despite the lifting, he is still staying within that time window that the team has set. Right around the 146 mark, he is consistently hitting almost exactly 146 every single lap. Still managing to conserve the fuel window, or conserve fuel, and still managing to keep that gap on Andy ahead. But now with pit stops underway for the GTPs, anything could happen here. including one of the top running GTPs having a problem a moment ago. Coming down into the bus stop. Just a little too much. Has to lock up the brakes. Hard hit. No pile up though. GTP stops are underway. Still a long way from the next round of GT3 stops. And Max is gaining time dramatically on Andy. Adam Polster had problems earlier on, very early on in the race, has been trying to fight his way back. He is now up into 17th. He is battling with the 6th place car of Andy Yeager, and that is allowing Max to close that gap quickly. He is now just 4.7 seconds back. They are still battling just ahead. Andy is still ahead of the Audi. Max now just 4.9 seconds. Looks like Andy and Adam had come to an understanding, but now they're too wide again as all the GTPs head to pit road, and one of those GTPs had a problem. Looked like some sort of problem as he came off pit road, comes to a stop in the International Horseshoe. Adam finally got around Andy, but it looks like Andy has been utilizing the draft off the Audi to open the gap back up just a little bit to 5.7 seconds. George Houghton is gaining some ground on Max at the moment. However, Max, as we mentioned, is being very, very careful about his fuel conservation. The GT3 leader has cranked it back up just a bit. He has pulled out to a 50.50 second gap on Max Gunther in 7th place. Now remember, both Max and Giancarlo have not been able to get any drafting help out here. Giancarlo lost all drafting help about a little bit into that first run. So they have been making up the ground they have single-handedly without any help. So far, the team already up 10 spots. This, as we mentioned, is the first outing for the Conliff Racing eSports team. If you haven't checked out their website, check out conliff-racing.com and check out their new partner, Advanced Sim Racing. Get a full turnkey racing setup from Advanced Sim Racing. They have some seriously cool setups. I mean, you know, if anybody wants to buy me one, I'm all for it. They have great setups. They are very strong, sturdy aluminum setups. They have all the best sim racing gear you could want. The best wheels, pedals, wheelbases, monitors, computer, everything, all for one low price. Max has apparently stepped it back up a notch. He is starting to close in on Andy yet again. As we've been asking all morning, if you have a team racing out here this morning, or racing in the 24 Hours of Daytona, let us know how they're doing. Looking at Max's time compared to the car behind, you see Houghton is closing the gap just a little bit, but remember, Houghton has been out there since the drop of the green flag. Max is a fresh driver in the car, and Max obviously doing everything he can to keep those lap times consistent to conserve fuel. Max still within the time window that the team wanted to run to conserve fuel, and they can afford to lose a little bit of time on track due to the fact that they will have one, potentially two less pit stops. over the course of 24 hours. At the moment, all 20... we're down to 24 of the GTPs still running. Many more GT3s already out of the race. George Houghton now just 5.4 seconds behind Max. Max now 6 seconds behind Andy, but Andy no longer has any drafting help. I do think there has been a change to the schedule today. I believe Max is running a single stint, then Adam will run a single stint, so they're going to have multiple driver changes throughout the day, trying to keep each other fresh. All right, folks, here in about 5.5 minutes, we are going to stop broadcasting for the time being, but don't forget to come back tonight around 10 Eastern. We will be back. We'll update where the team is at. Then we will go from there, and we'll leave the stream up overnight as the drivers go to battle, continue to fight it out. We'll leave it up. And the drivers will be able to hop in Discord and give you updates on what's going on track. Wow, that was extremely close. We've had some close calls for the Beamer this morning, but man, those GTPs are cutting it close here today. Make sure you're following us on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, and YouTube. We will post some updates throughout the day while we are not live, so you guys know where the team is at. And while you're waiting for us to come back this evening, make sure you check out Conliff-Racing.com. Here, we're going to help you out. There it is at the top, Conliff-Racing.com, to check out the Conliff Racing team website and check out their new partner, Advanced Sim Racing. They have some extremely cool setups. You can get your full setup built, delivered, ready to go. A full turnkey operation for enthusiasts and pros both. Houghton is starting to close the gap even further on Max. remember, Max is intentionally lifting, trying to conserve fuel. As of right now, on the last stop, Giancarlo able to go 2 laps further than most, and in most cases 4 laps more. They're trying to extend that 1 to 2 laps every single stop, and we have just had a crash with one of the GT3 cars that was fighting their way forward. And holy cow, and we're about to see Max coming through the International Horseshoe. There was chaos there a moment ago. Everybody towed to pit road. Let's see what just happened. Here's those 2 GTP cars headed down towards turn 1. One GT. They tried like crazy to cut the inside of the Audi of Adam Polster. And that one GTP just happened to get the tires to the inside. They hit the Audi enough to send it out to the outside though. Then the incident a few seconds later in the horseshoe that Max came running up on. Wow. Now, while that didn't impact Max directly, that GT3 car, Adam Polster, it is a bit of a heartbreak for him as he started up in let's see, it looks like he started in 20th and was moving through the field in the first couple of laps, but got taken out early, got repaired, got back out on track, only to be back on pit road. He was starting to make his way back through the field. Some of the GTP cars also now on pit road after those incidents. That's going to have a little bit of an effect because that will give the Conliff team more clear track, although Max about to not have any clear track. Well, that got a little exciting for Max. George back in 8th, still trying to close the gap on Max. They head off into turn 1. Andy Yeager, who's just ahead, now less than 6 seconds ahead. Max is starting to close back in. An interesting day of racing still ahead, folks. Make sure you're following us on all the socials. While we are away, check out that Conliff Racing website. We will be back later this evening. We will provide updates throughout the day. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you back here in a little bit. Have a great day, everybody.